Dobro jutro. Dami i gospodo, I would like to thank you, and I would like to thank you also Secretary General Cengic and President Hadžić for the warm welcome here again in Sarajevo. After all these years, it's very nice to be again with nice people. I had the opportunity yesterday to talk already to some of you. And ladies and gentlemen, talking about where I come from, I'm from the Austrian Insurance Association, well understood. We represent the interests of about 118 insurance companies. 3 among them you might know very well. 3 groups are also present on the market, insurance market of Bosnia and Herzegovina, namely Grave, Unica, and VAG. And ladies and gentlemen, the task for me will be now in the next 30 minutes to make a journey through EU legislative trends, current discussions we have now on EU level, and to present this to you. I can tell you this is quite a challenge. And first of all, I want to show you some details to get the feeling what are the current discussions, the current legislative projects. However, I've prepared the slides in, let's say, quite a technical matter. And if you agree, if this is fine for you, I would not touch all single points of each slide, but rather give you a general overview. As far as I know, afterwards, you will have access to the presentation and you can read out the details. And of course, I'm also at your availability if you have other questions in the coffee break or etc. Ladies and gentlemen, here on the slide, you see all the topics I would like to touch in the next minutes. And in general, I can already tell you that regulation is perceived in the European Union by insurers as one of the top challenges in the insurance industry. Why is this the case? Actually, you can see it already here. Michaela Koller was already mentioning this. If you look on the very left side of the slide, you will see the number of regulation 10 years ago. And if you look to the right side of the slide, you see the number of regulation insurers have to deal these days or have to deal in the future. So there is an increasing number of regulation on European level, and of course, this bears a lot of challenges for insurers. I don't want to go into all these details, but as Michaela Koller was mentioning, we have a lot of things to discuss on European level with our counterparts, legislators, and other stakeholders. Going now through all the different legislative projects, I've learned that Solvency II is Solventnost 2, if I'm correct in some Croatian. So Michaela Koller has already mentioned, we have in Europe the Solvency II regime, the risk-based regime, applicable as of 2016. There was a huge discussion before, long-term discussions to prepare it, and now we're in the process to make some fine-tunings, to see, okay, what has worked, what didn't work, and we are now in the process in a review to make some fine-tuning. And the fine-tuning will be made in this, as you can see it here, in the fields of proportionality, in the field of long-term guarantee measures, reporting, etc. What I can tell you in general, the perception of insurers is that there is an extensive reporting requirement for companies. And that is also important when talking about proportionality, that smaller entities have the possibility to adapt this to their needs. Second point, this proposal was drafted by the European Commission and presented last year. And at the same time, there was a second piece of legislation proposed, which is the Insurance Recovery and Resolution Directive. Recovery and resolution, what does it mean? If you change to the medical world, you would say there's a patient who is sick, not dead yet, and you should give him some medication that he feels better. And also, let's say, those he has to take care of feel better because he can take care of them. Which means the goal with this piece of legislation is to ensure a continuity of insurance coverage to the clients and to avoid that taxpayers have to pay in case of a failure. So basically, what does it mean for insurers? It means for insurers that they have to prepare a preparatory recovery and resolution plans. So they have to sit and prepare in detail if they really have problems, if they get sick, what they will do. Well understood, we have already certain provisions in the Solvency II regime. So from the insurance side, we would say, okay, what's actually the value added of this exercise? Because we have already a lot of measures in the Solvency II world. So basically, I just want to show you a little bit, this is where we stand now. We are currently in the process where the European Parliament on the one side and the member states, the council on the other side, discuss this question. It's highly political, and we will see what will be the outcome. The next topic I would raise, it's an enormous one. There were some people who say, yeah, the implementation of Solvency Nost was quite a big exercise. Some said IFRS, it was a big exercise. But if you talk to them and say to implement the sustainable finance requirements, that's even a much bigger exercise. Having said this, I want to point out that the EU sustainability agenda, it's not just something, it's a game changer. It's not an option, but it's a standard for the future. And it has huge impacts for insurance companies. You can see it here in all parts of the company. There will be an effect on compliance, reporting, underwriting, investment, relations with stakeholders, marketing, etc. Where does this whole story come from? Michaela Koller has already mentioned. There's the European Green Deal. It's a strategy from the European Commission, which has been published in December 2019. And this strategy with the goal of, let's say, to create until 2015, that's the general goal, a climate neutrality in Europe. It's now operationalized in the different sectors with a huge set of legislative projects. The estimated costs to reach these goals is said to be about 1 trillion euro. And of this, which means investment into new technologies, windmills, energy, solar panels, etc., 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 name it. And out of this, around 300 billion euros should come from the private sector. And this is the role for insurance companies. We are those who are able to make those investments if we have the opportunity to do so. When I'm talking about sustainability, we talk about ESG. What does this ESG mean? E is for environmental, S for social measures, and G for governance. Having said this, the role for insurers is particularly in order to meet the objectives of the European Green Deal. It is fundamental to direct investment towards sustainable projects and activities. Again, the role of investors for insurers. And what I've said now, I don't want to go into details, but I would like to show you what legislative projects we are currently negotiating on EU level to operationalize these big ideas. First of all, it's the taxonomy regulation. Basically, before we start this project, we have to know what are we talking about. So basically, it's to define a common language, to have a clear definition what is sustainable, and to have a common classification system for sustainable economic activities. This will be permanently updated, and this brings me also to one important message. This whole implementation of the sustainability agenda is like a staged process. So it doesn't happen at one time, you have to implement everything. It's happening permanently. Over the next years, you have always different deadlines until when you have to implement such projects. And the deadlines you will see also in the next slides, it's only for, let's say, the level 1, which are the general legislative measures, but technical issues, which are of utmost importance for insurance companies, are also then implemented in a staged way. You can see this here in this slide, but I don't, again, want to go into all these details. Second point is the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation. Here we talk about that companies, insurance, should assess what share of their premium aligns with the EU taxonomy. And this then have to disclose either in their pre-contractual information or on their website. This has to be done on entity level, but also on product level. Third project, it's the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD. It's a review of the non-financial reporting directive, and it's necessary for insurers to have source of information. And that's why insurers have to provide data, to have, let's say, a comparable and reliable reporting standard system. And insurers have to provide, being in the scope of, as you can see here, of this directive, but also other companies are in the scope. So insurers and other companies have to give certain data, and the goal is to increase the number of companies who have to do this reporting from around 10,000 at the moment up to 50,000 in the future. Again here, this staged implementation process. We see now we have everywhere lying around a lot of data. It's well defined, we know what we talk about, but insurers have to go somewhere to get this data. And potentially this could be a very costly exercise. If you have to go to a consultant who provides it, it can be very expensive. And that's why the European Union or the European Commission was proposing a legislative act which is called the European Single Access Point, the ESAP. And this is a public EU register of ESG information. Again, insurers can take to a low price or free the information from other information they need. On the other hand, as mentioned, they give data, but it's important to say that this is not any new data. This is already existing data. Again, here, this should be operational between 2026 and 2030. I would like to touch now another project. You see, there are a lot of projects. But to give you an idea, it's the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. What are we talking here? Basically, companies, including insurers, they have to look at their value chain and to assess the partners they're working with in this value chain if they correspond to certain criteria, for example, human rights or ecological standards. Again, as mentioned, insurers normally, most insurers will be in the scope of this exercise. Another topic, another aspect, is the marketing aspect. On European Union, there is prepared something like an EU eco-label. There's already existing an EU eco-label which should be extended then to life insurance products, particularly unit-linked insurance products. And this is something like, this label is something like the Champions League of green labels for financial products. And basically, I just want to point out, this is only valid on EU level, and it should be published in 2023. Last but not least, I want to mention, of course, this whole sustainability agenda has also an influence on the amendment of the Insurance Distribution Directive. So when you talk to your consumer, you have to give some advice, inform him about your possibilities of products you deliver with sustainable aspects. Second part, also Solvency II will be amended in the sense that something like a sustainability risk will be included. And these insurers have to already adapt since August this year. Having said this, about this whole sustainability agenda, I would like to point out the position of the insurance companies. First of all, of course, insurers have a leverage to foster and are fully committed to fulfill the criteria of the EU climate goals. Solvency II, as Michaela Koller has already said, is an important tool to unfreeze capital for insurers to make it available for these green investments. And therefore, it's important to have a wide range of investment possibilities. And I think this is also something which is not only important for EU member states, but also for other countries to offer these investment possibilities. So insurers and other economies are forced to invest in these projects, and those who are able to deliver such let's say, projects where insurers can invest would have, I think, a quite good business model. Needless to say that we have a difference between projects realized in Western Europe and maybe Eastern Europe, and therefore, let's see, a level of how sustainable projects are already implemented, and therefore it has to be assured that a smooth transition also in Eastern Europe is realized. This brings me to the next point. It's the field of distribution. What do we have in the field of distribution in the European Union? Since 2018, the Insurance Distribution Directive is in place. This means it's particular rules, particularly for the insurance sector, distribution rules applicable for all distribution channels. I don't want to go into details what this means. I guess most of you are aware of this. What is happening now is that the European Commission is already for some month, for some time, looking to make a review of this IDD, but at the same time to look at a new retail investment strategy. And what does this mean? We do not know yet what this will be the result, because a proposal is expected at the beginning of next year. But we have already certain signs that this will be a particular legal horizontal framework for distribution of investment-based insurance products, the so-called IPIPs, banking products, and investment products at the same time. This means in this legal framework, there will be the same rules for investment funds and insurance companies, which would have the result that the IDD would maybe adapt it in a direction to the MiFID II, which is the legal base for investment funds. I don't have to explain this. This could be a very critical exercise, particularly for the insurance business model. When we talk about content, you see here certain topics. We think at the moment this could be questions to be discussed. First, disclosures, inducements, something like a personal investment plan, and the discussion about value for money. I cannot go into details here. What I would like to point out for sure, there will be also the discussion about something like the commission system. In Austria and in European Union in general, we do not have something like a commission ban. But this could be politically discussed in this review process. Therefore, I would like to take the opportunity to point out important advantages of a commission system. First of all, in our region, and I'm not only referring to Austria, it's consumers expect to have advice without costs. If they would have to pay for advice, they would not be able to afford it, and they are not used to do so to get advice. This would have the result that there will be less advice, very problematic from a consumer protection practice. And on the other hand, of course, this would have a very big result also in social discrimination. In general, what we see now with IDDs, that what we have now is regulatory framework, there's a certain information overload for the customer, where insurers do not really see always the value added for the consumer. And therefore, it would be important to have more right information provided, and not just the mass, but the right information in a flexible way. This is our position from the insurer's perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, I would draw your attention now to another topic which is currently discussed on political level on European Union, is the right to be forgotten. You would ask, what is the right to be forgotten? To make it short, it's that health data may not be considered in policy application after a defined deadline. What is an example for this? It's, for example, there's a cancer patient who has survived cancer and applies for life insurance. And that after a certain period of time, the insurance company is not allowed anymore to use the information it has about this cancer disease for the calculation of the risk. This is a very, very delicate topic, I don't have to explain this. However, if we put it to the extreme, of course, this could have severe consequences for the business model of personal insurance, including the risk-based underwriting. What we see on European level at the moment, the discussion is very much based on the access to mortgage credits, including life insurance, particularly in the field of cancer. But we would expect, once such a discussion is rolling, that this would be also touch other lines of business for insurers and also other diseases. So we see this right to be forgotten already introduced in a number of EU member states, for example, Benelux, Portugal, Romania. And we see now a discussion coming on EU level with the European Commission also to prepare a code of conduct until the year 2024. This brings me to the next point. It's a big topic. I think it has some other speakers before have mentioned this, digitalization. Digitalization is a priority of the European Commission. And there's a broad range of digitalization topics, of course, which have influence on the business model of insurance, on their daily business. And for example, to mention here, it's, let's say, the exchange of data. The exchange of data is the fuel for insurance companies. So whenever something is changed in this way, the rules, how the exchange of data can happen, it's very delicate. I want to mention here one example. For example, the access to in-vehicle data. It's kind of a certain competition between the car industry and insurers. There's a lot of data available for car manufacturers with their car. And if they, for example, would not give this information to insurers, this would have huge impact. And exactly these discussions we have now in insurance on European level, how these rules will be made in the future. One point I still want to mention, of course, it's also very important from our point of view to create something like a level playing field for all players in the data economy. What I'm mentioning here is, I think most of you know it already, it's basically a certain competition maybe with big tech companies, where we see tendency that those companies try to enter in the insurance market. Ladies and gentlemen, I have now prepared an overview of the different legal acts which are currently discussed. Again, I do not want to go into details. The first acts I've prepared here, they are in the field of data exchange, like for example the Data Act, which is basically regulating how the exchange of B2B data and business to governments data should be in the future. This is the general approach. There will be also some more further projects in the field in different sectors, also let's say for the insurance and finance sector, to extend existing rules from the banking or from the payment system also to other financial sectors, the exchange of data, the role of customers, etc. Again, I don't want to go into details. We expect by the end of the year a proposal by the European Commission in this field. We have a project discussed about the European health data space, exchange of health data, extremely relevant for health insurance companies. I also do not want to go into details here. We have a project currently discussed, is the Artificial Intelligence Act. I think you're aware insurance companies use artificial intelligence applications. The question here is, are these applications of insurers a high-risk application? We say no, the European Commission says no, EIOPA, the European regulator, says no, but this is a political discussion if insurers would fall into the scope or not. If they fall in the scope, they have excessive reporting requirements, and this is a very critical point in this field. And well understood, insurers as their companies have to assure that they are very well equipped against potential threats, potential cyber attacks, etc., if they have processes to mitigate such cyber attacks. There has been the DORA proposal, has been politically already finished, and the Cyber Resilience Act is about to be negotiated. Very briefly, motor insurance, MTBL liberalization is a big topic, I think, here on the market, as we heard. In Europe, there has been the Motor Insurance Directive. There was a review which has been adopted last year and has to be implemented on national level until December next year. The topics, it's about definition of the scope, it's about to have discussions about the minimum coverage amounts, about harmonization of the certificates of claims history. Again, I don't want to go in details for respecting the time limit. This brings me, we saw now a lot of legal projects. This brings me now to other discussions we have on European level. And it's the big topic of protection gaps and discussing what is needed to increase insurability. I think a very important question we also discuss on insurance markets here in the region, and decrease the existing insurance protection gaps. I would have chosen here 4 examples. First one, cybersecurity insurance products. There, from the insurance perspective, it's necessary to have more data available to produce better products, to increase insurability. Second point, pandemic risks. We were making some exercises on European level during the pandemic, and the result was very clear. Per definition, pandemics cannot be insured unless there's something like a public-private partnership with a strong engagement from the state, and even there are some limits. Third point, it's the pension gap. Very important, I guess, here also in the region, when we look at demographic changes. We saw this in the presentations before. Let's say, what can be done in this field? And we see a very important role here for incentives, particularly in the field of taxation. This would be very important. Second point would be the support of long-term, let's say, the long-term character of insurance products, also with guarantees. We see, for example, now in the field of Solvency II. I look at the time, I still have 3 minutes left, so allow me to lose some words about a very, very, very important topic. It's closing the significant protection gap and increase prevention in the field of natural catastrophes. Where do we stand here in Europe? We have some countries where we have already some projects. All these projects are public-private partnerships. And well understood, only public-private partnerships work in these circumstances. And purely private sector solutions we have seen that this is not working or is not working in a good manner. So what should be done? There should be something like a pre-disaster model. A pre-disaster model where insurance companies can play a very important role in prevention, in creating such a model. And this is in contrast to other models we see at the moment, which is a post-disaster model, where in the end the taxpayer has to pay. And if you look at these models, it's highly inefficient. So we really should go to find solutions. The insurance industry is offering a wide range of possibilities in this field. However, it can be only realized together with the state in a public-private partnership. And therefore, it's important that the state plays an important role, particularly when it comes to a backstop guarantee. The time is a little bit running out. I just have brought you this, what is the Austrian Insurance Association doing in prevention. We have developed something, a risk zoning model. It's available on internet for everyone. It's called HORA. You find it under hora.gv.at or on our webpage. And there basically it's a risk zoning. So you can put your address of your household and you can see what risks you have on your particular address when it comes to flooding, it comes to storms, it comes to earthquakes, etc., etc. And you can see here we have now some further developments that you can see even in 3D, the real risk exposure of your house, for example, in this case here for flooding. I will go now in the last minute to the lessons learned. For the conclusions, the increase of quantity and complexity is something we can observe on EU level. There's a potential challenges for the business model, for the insurance business model. There are potential competitions challenges. You can see the examples which I was mentioning in distribution and digitalization. However, insurers can play an important role and have a potential to contribute to the EU Green Deal, to finance the EU Green Deal, and they have an important role and the ability to address increasing risks of society, NatCat, pensions, cyber. To finalize, and if you still give me this minute, because I think we are here in Bosnia-Herzegovina, in the beautiful town of Sarajevo, I would like to give from our experiences some points what could be key factors for successful implementation of EU legislative acts. First of all, I think Mr. Jovanovic, you were mentioning this, it's important to talk to each other, to have close cooperation on national level, to have early contact and dialogue with EU stakeholders and EU institutions. There should be something like a cross-sectoral knowledge transfer to take lessons learned also from other markets. I think our friends from Croatia, they do a great job here in the region with their experiences. What is very important also, the particularities of the local insurance market should be taken into account. Not only making a copy-paste exercise, which could be also translated, if you look, for example, in how the text is written, that it should be written that people really understand what they have to do. And of course, when implementing, it should be a step-by-step exercise with realistic timelines. All this should bring us to a situation where there is a foreseeable and stable legislative environment with guaranteeing a level playing field among all market participants. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for the invitation, and I wish you a very good coffee break. Thank you.